What's goody? Welcome to the channel. This is going to be a new series where I'll be doing chapter summaries of 86. Some parts I might go into full details, but I also will be skipping over parts that I don't think will be relevant. I'll be covering the prologue and chapter 1 in this video, so there will be spoilers ahead, so proceed at your own risk. If I make any errors in pronunciations or anything, let me know in the comments and I'll correct myself for next time. I would love to hear feedback on how to improve the qualities, but without further ado, let's get into the video. The prologue takes place, of course, after the events of the anime and Volume 3, at around the beginning of the second chapter of the volume for some reason. The prologue starts from Annette's point of view on her way to the Federacy. She's thinking about the past. Rita. That was the name her childhood friend would always call her. He had trouble pronouncing her name correctly, so he would say Rita instead. He lived next door to Annette, and they would play almost every day. The two of them were close enough that they could be seen as a married couple when they grew up. But everything changed on that fateful day 11 years ago. They were robbed of their friendship. Or so Annette had believed. As she arrived at the Federacy exiting the transfer plane, a Giad military officer stood waiting to greet her. Annette squinted and looked at him. He was about the same age as Annette. Searching through his features, she identified the black hair of an onyx and the blood-red eyes of a pyro, features that were closely similar to her childhood friend. Annette then regarded the officer at a glance and asked for his name. He introduced himself in a cold voice. Shin Nozin, Section Commander of the 86 Strike Package and Captain of the Spearhead Squadron. At your service, Major Penrose. The chapter starts in the Western Front's Integrated Federacy headquarters with Major General Richard Altner and the Chief of Staff Commodore Willem. They discuss about a strike force that pilots the Reagan leaves, and it will be used to suppress the Legion's core locations. A foreign force composed of the 86, they called it the 86 Strike Package. Compared to the soldiers of the Federacy with proper combat training, the 86 were in a league of their own, and from a tactical point of view, not putting them to use wasn't an option. The first 586 they've unintentionally sheltered stood as a test case. Even after being given a peaceful life, they chose not to accept it. The relentless pursuit of combat scenarios they had little to no hope of returning alive from made the other forces fear them. They were seen as the monsters the Republic created. Following the Morpho's elimination operation, the Federacy confirmed the survival of not only the United Kingdom, the Alliance of Wald, the Republic, but several other countries too, which will be key locations in the future volumes. All of them would know the atrocities committed by the Republic. The Republic's treatment of the 86 will come to be known as the single most abhorrent account of human persecution of all recorded history, and that would tarnish the Republic's reputation for years to come, if not forever. In the morning following the day Lena reunited with the Spearhead Squadron, Lena got up in the Federacy's headquarters. She put on the painted black uniform to mourn the deaths of the subordinates she had lost, and a strip of her hair was dyed red in acknowledgement of the shed blood. She hears a knock on the door as she was tightening her tie. She'd never known his face until now, but she did know his voice. This would be the start of a rocky relationship. The door opened gently, and Shin peeked his face in the room. Colonel, a transport to the headquarters base will go out at 8:25 hours, which I assume 8:25 hours is 8:25 AM in our universe. They were going to the new Ruskammer base. It was a large base hugged by forest and is located in a region that bordered the former empire and old territories. It was a base close to the city for ease of transportation, and this would also help the 86 rehabilitate into society. This is going to be the new base for Lena's new unit, the 86 Strike Package. The 86 who were sheltered following the Battle of the Morpho were still in training, and the other four seniors, Raiden, Theo, Anju, and Kurna, were at the barracks saying they need to handle their paperwork, which leaves Shin to act as Lena's guide today. Was that a coincidence? Probably not. As they head out, Shin offered to take Lena's luggage and her cat carrier. Lena says it's fine, but Shin ignores her and takes her bag anyways. Lena then starts checking him out. She notices the scar around his neck and wanted to ask him about the scar, but thinks it'll be better for Shin to tell her himself.
You wanna know how I got these scars? My
Ani desu.
was a drinker and a fiend. And one night, he goes off crazier than usual.
Noticing Lena's gaze fixated on him, Shin addressed her. What is it? Nothing, she claims, as the fact that just looking at him made her happy, which was far too embarrassing to say out loud. Shin casted a sus glance at Lena as she stared at the floor with reddened cheeks. They would go on to congratulate each other on their promotions. Even though Shin was a captain of the Republic, he had to start from the bottom again in the Federacy. But Shin is the main character, so he climbed up the ranks pretty easily. Shin also mentions that he is scheduled to meet with Major Henrietta Penrose later during the day. Lena shot Shin a side glance as Lena knew Annette and Shin were childhood friends, but Shin had no memories of Annette when they were younger, but that will be a topic in future chapters. They fell into a brief silence, but that was soon broken by a sudden meow. It was the cat they have raised from the 86th sector. Shin asked Lena what she named the cat, and she named it, get ready for it, Thermopylae, or Teepee for short, or Tepi as they called it in the anime. Thermopylae was the name of a battlefield where a small army faced a larger one, against the odds, ending with soldiers from the smaller army dying an honorable death. Shin proceeds to make fun of Lena for her terrible naming choices, but Shin wasn't good at names as well, as he wanted to name the cat Ugai, which I assume was the name of the author of the book he is currently reading. As they arrive to the front of the base's largest hangar, Colonel, I understand you're about to be very angry with me, but please direct your anger only at me. I beg your pardon, Lena replies. Suddenly, a thick voice bellowed out, take aim! Shin got out of the way, while Lena braced herself as she turned to see, not guns aimed at her, but a large amount of water falling towards her head. Lena was hit with a large amount of water that felt like someone had tipped a full bathtub over her. She thought it was some sort of Federacy welcoming tradition, but we'll find out more if that was truly the case. Greth then approached them and handed a bundle of towels to Lena, while teasing Shin's relationship with a certain somebody, and Shin was of course annoyed. Greth then giggled and then left while taking the wet towels with her. Afterwards, Shin took Lena to her private headquarters located on the top floor. It was spacious and prioritized creature comfort over defense, as it was a safe zone over 100 kilometers away from the front lines. Shin dropped her luggage and a cat carrier and left the room. As Lena made her way to the bathroom, we are about to have a Lena shower scene. As Lena is in the shower, she never really got an explanation of why they poured water on her. She activates the parade targeting Shin, of course, who was waiting outside her private headquarters. Shin shut down the call wordlessly, but Lena reconnected the resonance again and asked why Shin hung up on her. He responded in a disconcerted tone. If anything, why did you resonate now of all times? We were in the middle of a conversation, Lena said. We can finish it later, at least wait until after you shower, please. Lena refused to back down. You were fine with it before when you told me about the black sheep and the shepherds, 2 years ago in the spearhead squadron's barracks. You were connected while you were in the shower. If you haven't read volume 1, there is a scene from episode 5, near the end of the episode, where Shin is explaining to Lena about the shepherds through the parade. Shin was actually supposed to be in the shower that time, and was comfortable talking to Lena, but the anime excluded that for some reason. But if they cut that out, I'd imagine they might cut Lena showering out of the anime too, when or if season 2 comes out. But maybe they won't because it's Lena and they want to satisfy their target audience. Now let's continue. The resonance ended again, and Shin took off his great device so she couldn't reconnect. Lena was quite embarrassed, and Shin knew. Only their sense of hearing was being resonated through the parade. This included the sounds of her breath and the water running through the shower were also being transmitted. But the parade gave the impression that they were face to face, and Lena realizing that meant her feelings of embarrassment was directly transmitted to Shin, and this left Shin feeling restless. Later on, Raiden is on his way to Greth's office, who finds Shin sitting on the corridor carpet in front of Lena's office. Shin was waiting for Lena to finish showering, but for some reason, he was down on his knees. Raiden asks him what was wrong, and Shin just says it's nothing. After Lena finishes showering, she continued the conversation with Shin through the parade about what happened earlier. They talked about the 86 strike package that most of the 86 volunteered to join. Roughly 10,000 86s were sheltered by the Federacy who survived the atrocities of the Republic. The reason why Lena had water poured on her when she arrived at the headquarters was that she was a Republic officer and she was going to be everyone's superior, and not everyone in the Federacy is going to like that because of what her country did. And this is kind of a way of retribution for the Federacy, as Shin puts it. And it was Shin's idea to have buckets of water be poured on her because there were probably more extreme ideas of retribution the Federacy had. And Shin, of course, shut them all down. So as Shin says, if you're going to be angry at me. Lena thinks that this is well-deserved punishment for her, as she shouldn't get mad, but Shin cuts down Lena's self-deprecation with a hint of annoyance in his voice. Shin, wanting to cheer Lena up, goes on a massive monologue on how the only people that should have retribution on the Republic are the 86s, not the Federacy, and the retribution that they gave her was unjustified violence against her. And he tells her there's no need to be a smaller person for it. If anyone treats Lena with disrespect, she has the authority and the responsibility to punish them, as she is their superior. As Lena finishes getting ready, the Federacy didn't have a black uniform for her, so she puts on the Republic's military deep blue uniform. This is the first time Shin actually saw her in that uniform, since she's only been wearing the black one until now. Shin was in charge of showing her around the base. It was supposed to be a base tour, but I'm gonna call it what it really is, a date. As Shin is showing Lena around the base, Frederica is spying on their date with her abilities, like watching a couple of newlyweds, as she puts it. As we know from the series, because of her royal blood, Frederica can see the past and presence of a person she knows with just a name and a face, and she plans to go into the dining hall, as Frederica saw Shin and Lena were headed there. Theo, appearing out of nowhere, tries to stop her from eavesdropping, then Kurna tries to speed off to the cafeteria but was tackled by Anju, thinking that Kurna was plotting to get in the way of Shin and Lena, so they all decide to go somewhere else to eat. As we transition back to Shin and Lena's date at the dining hall, the food at the Federacy was different from the synthetic food from the Republic. Lena found the food delicious, which made Shin really happy, as Shin and the few other members were the ones who went hunting to get the food. Just like back in the 86th sector, they would have to hunt or fish for their food on the safe days. Lena thought that sounded kind of fun, but she immediately shook off that impression and had a pained, tragic expression. Shin noticed that and tells her not to make that face. He continues saying that the 86 wouldn't do something as pathetic as hanging themselves just because their deaths were predetermined. They wouldn't just sit idly counting the days until the end. If they have to die, they would live each day without regrets, always smiling to the face of death. That was their one and only form of resistance. Lena then mentioned that she'd like to start fishing sometime. Shin, trying to stop Lena from making that pained expression, bullies her about catching bugs as bait for fishing when Lena hated bugs. Lena then goes on to talk about the synthetic food in the Republic, as in the other 85 districts, with exception to upper-class families, had to eat nothing but synthetic food made from a production plant, which was dull and tasteless, which is vastly different from natural foods. After the large-scale offense in the Republic, they were offered natural foods since all of their production plants I would assume are now taken over by the Legion, and having not been used to natural foods like meat, the children of the Republic did not like it. But Shin isn't one to judge someone's cooking though, since he isn't good at cooking as he recalled Raiden calling his sense of taste dull. Lena was surprised that there was something Shin wasn't good at. Lena also doesn't know the first thing about cooking. Due to being raised from a noble family, she never really had to do any housework, as she thinks she needed a hammer to open up eggshells. Shin then offers her to take a cooking class at the Federacy. Lena responded that she would, only if Shin takes it with her, which was a perfect opportunity for Shin to get closer to Lena, but Shin refused, which only made Lena more determined to become better at cooking so she could rub it in his face. As they left the cafeteria, Shin showing Lena the hangar where they keep all the robots, Lena then remembers that she had a package for Shin, grabbing a parcel from the maintenance team. Inside the package was an automatic pistol, the same one Shin used in the Republic. It was the same gun he used that broke during the Battle of the Morpho. It was Shiden, captain of Lena's squad, who found the pistol in the Battle of the Morpho. She fixed the pistol and packaged it to tell Lena to give it to Shin as a prank. Lena knew the pistol belonged to the person who fought the Morpho, and recognizes the headless skeleton's personal mark. She now connects all the dots and realizes it was Shin who was the one she was talking to that day 6 months ago. "It was you?" Lena asked. Shin was trying to find a way out, but he admitted it was him, then apologized to her because he said some mean things to her back then. But Lena was confused, and she doesn't remember what she told him back then. She goes on, "I was desperate at the time. I actually don't quite remember what happened, but did I perhaps say something rude myself? I was, quite exhausted and a bit out of it at the time, and I feel like I said all sorts of things in the heat of the moment." Lena thought that forgetting what happened was much ruder, but Shin was relieved. "No, you actually saved me back then. Thank goodness. In that case, I'm glad." That was the one thing Lena did remember. She recalled that the Reagan Leaf was alone, and the fight must have been terrible for the Federacy to order him to do that. So if she could help him even a little bit, she was glad. Shin accepted the pistol from Lena, but couldn't carry around a pistol he hasn't tested yet, so the pair go back to Shin's room to put the gun down. Shin asks where Lena got the pistol from, and tells him that it's from Captain Ida, aka Cyclops, which left Shin in a sour mood. And now that Lena knows that Shin definitely knew it was Lena back then in the Morpho operation, Lena asks, why didn't Shin tell her until now? He could have at least contacted her earlier. Shin then tells her, "I never once doubted that you'd catch up to us, Colonel. I never doubted that you'd reach our final destination. I worried that contacting you or coming to see you would make it seem like I didn't believe you could do it on your own. You remembered." "Of course I did." And that made Lena really happy. If there was ever an opportunity to say what was needed, this would be a good time to say it. "Shin." Lena called his name firmly. Shin turned to her face, closing the door to his room. Lena asked him if they could call each other by their names when they're not in public, where it's acceptable. She wanted him to treat her like Raiden, Theo, and the others. Shin then responds with, "I don't mind, but in one condition." "There's a condition?" "Yes. Please stop making that tragic face." His words struck Lena like a knife through the heart. Lena was in denial, but her tragic face was irritating to Shin. "When I said I wanted you to remember us, it wasn't so you remember our deaths. I didn't tell you to live on just so you could spend every day trying to atone for your sins. I didn't leave you with those words as a punishment, so that you would wear such a tortured expression. So stop wearing that macabre uniform that doesn't suit you, and neither does his hair. After a moment of hesitation, he gently scooped up a strand of Lena's long, silken hair, the lone streak that was dyed red, meant to represent the blood of the 86. You don't have to do this anymore. You have no sins to atone for. No one's condemning you. So please stop. Stop trying to bear a cross that doesn't exist. To Lena, it wasn't a cross. It wasn't guilt. It was armor. The uniform dyed black. The hair dyed red. They were the armor she needed to fight alone in the Republic, where everyone else forgot how to fight. But there's no one left. You and the others, everyone I took command after you left, they all went ahead and left me behind. Lena heard a voice in her head. Your side is the one who cast them out. The side who sent them to their deaths. You have no right to say anything. No right to weep your loneliness to him. No one believed me. No one would fight with me. No one stood beside me. Even though I begged them, don't leave me behind. Both my uncle and mother passed away, and I was left alone, so if I didn't pretend to be strong, I wouldn't have never lasted. If I didn't call myself the Bloodstained Queen, if I didn't believe the lie that I was Bloody Regina, then I would have broken and fallen a long time ago. Shin quietly affirmed Lena's vulnerability. Maybe he identified with some of what she said. Maybe this boy, same age as her, carried the same name as a Reaper, so he could survive the battlefield of certain deaths. Yeah, but you don't need that anymore. You're not alone anymore. You have me, Raiden, and the others by your side. The warmth of his body, slightly warmer than her own, had made her restless earlier, but now it felt comforting. It gave weight to his words and filled her with hope. Didn't you want to fight together with us? And that was her limit. Lena clung to the person who stood at her side, and wept like a child. Raiden and Theo were tucked in the shadows behind the walls, hidden from view, whispering as quietly as they could so Shin's keen ears and senses wouldn't pick up on their presence. Theo had a clamp on Frederico's mouth, while Raiden equally muffled Kurina. Anju was also there, thinking that Shin was gonna notice them too soon. They all had to leave, but they heard most of the conversation. Lena then says that she will change her hair and uniform back to what it was before. However, until a spare uniform arrives, I'll keep wearing the black one. Couldn't you just wear the Federacy uniform until then? Would that be more to your liking? Huh? Shin stared back at Lena, unsure how to respond. He froze with his mouth open, flustered, which was really uncharacteristic of him, which Lena bursted out in laughter. And that ends chapter 1. I'll stop it right there. I'll continue on to the next part if this video does well. Since this is my first video, I'll set my expectations relatively low. If we get 5 likes on this video, I will get on to the next part as soon as I can. And until then, I'll see you guys later.